My grandfather paid off his house in 9 years. He worked at a steel mill. He made what most people today would call a modest income. He never inherited money, never got a windfall, never won anything. He just paid off his house in 9 years. And when I asked him once how he did it, he looked at me like I had asked something strange, like I had just asked him why he breathed. He said, "Son, that was just what you did." And that's the thing, before 1970, paying off your house fast wasn't a financial strategy. It wasn't a YouTube trend. It wasn't a Dave Ramsey challenge. It was just normal. Today, the average American carries a 30-year mortgage. Many people refinance, which means they restart the clock. Some people die still making house payments. So what happened? What did that generation know that we forgot? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hello friends, and welcome back to rediscover. I hope you're doing well and having a wonderful day. May God bless you with happiness, good health, and success in everything you do. My name is Lisa Rachel, and at 65 years old, I'm here to share the timeless money lessons, wealth building strategies, and financial wisdom I've learned throughout my life. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video or learn something valuable from it, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to rediscover, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Now, without wasting any time, let's dive into today's money secret. Before we talk about the tactics, we need to talk about the mindset, because without understanding how they thought, the tactics won't make any sense. Before 1970, debt was seen as a burden, not a tool, not leverage, a burden. There was an old saying that working class families lived by. Oh no, man, it came from a time when debt was genuinely shameful. If you owed your neighbor money, you couldn't look him in the eye. If you owed the bank money, you felt it every single morning when you woke up. Debt was not neutral. It was a weight on your chest, and that feeling, that heavy, uncomfortable feeling of being in debt, is what drove people to pay off their houses so fast. They didn't want to feel that weight one day longer than they had to. Now contrast that with today. We have been trained deliberately, systematically trained to feel comfortable with debt. Credit card companies celebrate rewards. Banks advertise 30-year mortgages like they're doing you a favor. Financial advisors tell you to keep your mortgage for the tax deduction. We were taught to be comfortable being in debt forever. But your grandfather? He wasn't comfortable, and that discomfort was his greatest financial asset. Here is the first tactical reason people paid off houses faster before 1970. They bought smaller houses. This sounds obvious, but the numbers are striking. In 1950, the average American home was about 983 square feet. By 2020, that number had grown to over 2,500 square feet. We are buying houses that are 2.5 times bigger, often for families that are actually smaller than they used to be. That generation bought what they needed, not what impressed the neighbors. They also followed a rule that almost nobody follows today. They refused to spend more than 2 times their annual income on a house. Think about what that means. If a man made $5,000 a year, which was a solid working class wage in 1955, he bought a house that cost no more than $10,000. Banks actually enforced this back then. They wouldn't lend you more than you could realistically repay. Today, people routinely borrow 5, 6, even 7 times their annual income, and then they wonder why the mortgage never seems to go away. The house itself was smaller, the loan was smaller, and so the payoff came faster. There's a lesson here that sounds almost too simple. The fastest way to pay off your house is to not buy too much house to begin with. Now here is where it gets really interesting, because buying a smaller house alone doesn't explain 10-year payoffs on working class wages. The second piece was a habit that has almost completely disappeared: the extra payment. Families before 1970 treated their mortgage payment as the minimum, not the goal. Every month when they paid their mortgage, they added something extra. It didn't have to be huge, $10, $20, $50 if it was a good month. That extra money went directly to the principal of the loan. And this is where the math becomes almost magical. On a standard 30-year mortgage, most of your early payments go to interest. The bank collects its money first. Your actual loan balance barely moves for the first several years. But when you make extra payments directly to the principal, even small ones, you skip months, sometimes years. You are shrinking the life of the loan every single time you send that extra dollar. Families before 1970 understood this intuitively. They called it killing the interest. Every extra payment was a small victory, a few months shaved off the back end of the loan. The habit was consistent, month after month, year after year. That little extra payment compounded into something extraordinary. One generation's small, boring habit produced paid-off houses in 10 years. There's something else that happened in homes before 1970 that almost never happens today. Families talked about money, not argued about money, talked about it. In many working-class homes, Sunday was money day. After church, after dinner, the husband and wife would sit at the kitchen table with a notepad, sometimes just the back of an envelope, and go over the week. How much came in, how much went out, what was left, and the first question they asked themselves, can we put anything extra on the house this month? This regular habit, this kitchen table meeting, meant that the mortgage was always on their minds. It wasn't an abstract number somewhere in a filing cabinet. It was alive, it was real. They watched it shrink week by week, year by year. There is something powerful about writing the number down, seeing how much you still owe, watching that number get smaller because of your choices. Today, most people have no idea exactly what their mortgage balance is. They get a statement, they glance at the minimum payment due, and they pay it. The balance is irrelevant to them. It wasn't irrelevant to your grandfather. He knew the number. He was hunting it down. This is one that almost nobody talks about anymore, but it is critical. The generation that paid off houses in 10 years, they almost never refinanced. Refinancing today is sold to us as a smart financial move. Lower your monthly payment, get a better rate, and sometimes it genuinely makes sense. But here is what refinancing actually does. It restarts the clock. If you've been paying on a 30-year mortgage for 7 years and you refinance into a new 30-year mortgage, you now have 30 more years of payments ahead of you. You didn't shorten your loan, you extended it. Before 1970, refinancing wasn't common. Most people took out a loan and stayed with it until it was gone. They didn't touch it. They didn't play games with it. They just paid it. Every year that passed was a year they didn't have to undo. Today, the average American refinances multiple times over the life of a home, and each time they reset to zero. They spend decades making payments without ever getting close to freedom. The old rule was simple: sign once, pay until it's done. When a family paid off their house before 1970, something remarkable happened. They threw a party. It was called a mortgage burning party. The family would gather, sometimes neighbors too, and they would take the paid-off mortgage document, the deed, and they would literally burn it over the kitchen sink or in the backyard. It was a celebration, a ritual, a moment of genuine community joy. Think about what that party did psychologically. From the day a family moved in, they knew there would be a party someday, a real, tangible finish line, a moment of victory. That celebration, that cultural expectation kept people focused. The mortgage wasn't just a debt, it was a race they were running, and the finish line was a party with people they loved. Today, most people who pay off their mortgage don't even know how to feel about it. There's no ceremony, no ritual. Nobody told them this was supposed to be a moment worth celebrating. When you remove the celebration, you remove some of the motivation to get there. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we talked about today. The people who paid off their houses in 10 years were not wealthy. They were not special. They were not financial geniuses. They just followed a set of simple rules that we have been convinced to abandon. Buy only what you can actually afford. Treat the minimum. Payment as the floor, not the ceiling. Make extra payments to the principal whenever you can, even small ones. Sit down regularly and look at the number. Don't restart the clock, and never forget that there is a finish line worth celebrating. None of this requires a high income. None of this requires a financial advisor. None of this requires a complicated spreadsheet. It requires the same thing your grandfather had: the belief that being debt-free is worth more than any short-term comfort. If you've never thought about your mortgage this way, start today. Write down your current balance. Look at it. That number is the enemy, and you can win. If this video reminded you of something your parents or grandparents used to say, I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments below. This community is built on wisdom that was passed down at kitchen tables, and I never want it to be forgotten. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to uncovering the money habits that built the American middle class, the rules, the systems, and the wisdom that no school teaches anymore. Subscribe so you never miss a video, and I'll see you in the next one.